Everybody, welcome to my channel. I just wanted to give you a quick few tips on a lot of questions I have been asked about my C2C graph ghan I'm working on. I'm working on a half Detroit Lions, half Detroit Red Wings for my family. Originally this blanket started out because I got a really good deal on this blue and silver yarn. It's like a chunkier style yarn. As I was going up the rows, I designed my own design. I just did 3, 2, 1, 3 rows blue, 2 rows silver, 1 row like a cream color, just to kind of sort of mimic the colors. Well, my father was so impressed. He's like, wouldn't it be cool if you could do half Red Wings as well? So then I got the idea in my head, me being loving a challenge, how about I put the words in as well for the logo? Well, I found the first logo a lady sent me a link for that she had done, and it was for Detroit Lions, and the wording came out pretty well. And so when I came time to do the Red Wing side, let me see if I can get a bigger picture of this. Like, here's the red, and then I apologize, this blanket is huge. W-I-N-G-S, okay? Now when it came to doing these, inserting the logo, there's no pattern out there for this as far as doing this particular graph ghan. This is what I'm making up as I go along. So I had found, like I said, I had a Lions one given to me by a wonderful lady on one of my websites. I can't think of her name right now, but she sent it to me in a file. And then I did find it on another site as well, but if you Google or search the internet for, just put graph gans like NFL or NHL, that's how this Red Wings one popped up. It had the Red Wings and it had the big wheel logo. And it was this almost virtually the same thing when it came to the Lions logo. They were both 17 rows high, except for the Wings logo ended up being a little bit extra width on the rows, but it was only by like 4 or 5 W. Okay, this basically tells you how high your graph is, and this obviously says the length of it. Okay, now remember, when you're doing a C2C graph ghan, each block equals 1 square inch. So the dilemma I had as I'm doing this blanket is these graphs are made, usually it's super easy when you're going back and forth with a single crochet, but on a graph ghan you're always working on an angle. So I just wanted to give you guys a few tips when you're reading this. When I was doing this blanket, I had to read it upside down because of where it was coming up. When it was coming on the Lions side, I read, say this is the Lions logo, I read the Lions logo and I had to do it from bottom to front because I had faced on the blanket, and then the Wings logo got turned around. But I did want to give a few tips. Make sure if you're going to do this if you're going to do any kind of dual blanket, make sure you know exactly how many width you need. And like my dilemma, like saying the Red Wings logo, is this S, the last block, is solid all the way down for about 1, 2, 3, 4. You still have to count these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows. You had to maintain enough space on this side to keep the logo straight, because I remember on the way back we're decreasing, so each row you're coming in a block. So you have to make sure when you're doing your graphs that you account for that as well. So I had to end up making the centerpiece, like I did a border up top before I started. I made sure I went like 4 or 5 extra rows wide so it would accommodate for this logo. And then you had to bring your blocks in on each side. You had to make sure that it would, since it was centered on the blanket, you had to make sure that you counted, okay, I have this many rows across, and then this is going to be, you know, my starting block, and then this is my ending block. How many extra do I have on each side so I can center my logo? Because you can't start with just going off and this is your first block, because then when you start to decrease, you're going to lose your logo. Also, another very important thing when you're doing this blanket, or you're doing any kind of C2C graph ghan with letters, always know, if it's not a pattern, if you're following an actual pattern, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're inserting any kind of words into an already going blanket, if you're going to come to, say you're reading your graph, and your graph, say you're upside down, right? Say you're reading your graph, and you've already got the first row, and the first row is pretty easy. You don't have to worry about overlapping. But as you're coming back, now say this one right here, this row right here, see how it starts after this? Okay? Anytime you're working on a graph can like this, if the block is on top of one another, like this right here for this line, the red, when you're coming across the blanket, say, let's see, where am I at right here? This is the N. Okay, let's see. The IN. Okay, so here's my blanket right here. Right here. Okay, this is the N, which are right here. Now, when I was coming across the previous row, say if I was working from this way down, as I was coming on my, when you're doing your rows and stuff, if the graph says it needs to go on top of the previous row, you start your stitch in the stitch before the color from the next row. I know that's probably confusing, but okay, let me show you an example. I'm coming back. Okay, say we're coming along because this row hasn't been attached. Say this color right here is red, and on my map, let's just pretend it's this. Say, let's just pretend we're coming. Say we're coming back this way from that side. Say this, we need to go on top of this one. Okay, so we're coming across, and we see this color is red for the previous row, and we know it has to sit. The block has to sit on top. As you're coming across, it looks funny, but you start your red here. You don't put it on top of here, because as you do the blanket, this color will eventually sit on top of this one, making it the same color. But if you were to put it here, it throws off your lettering. So I had to frog several rows because I was getting frustrated, and I finally realized what was going on is if the color changes here, if this is where it needs to color from the previous row needs to lay on top of, you need to start the block on the previous block. I really hope I didn't confuse anybody, but this is just a helpful tip that I've run into, and if somebody else is going to insert any of their graphs into any of their work, I would hope to make it a little easier for you. Like I said, always be conscious of, if you don't really have to worry too much if you're on the growing side of your blanket, because you're always adding rows, but you have to be very careful if you're going to put a logo on the other side of your blanket, like I did. Like I said, I did the half lions, half red wings. You have to make sure you're going to account for how many blocks your graph is going to be solid all the way down so that it looks nice and even. So like on mine, the S, I was really worried at first that I wasn't going to have enough because it kept decreasing, and obviously, so I made sure I went those extra like 4 or 5 rows to give me extra room. And this is just a piece. I'm not done weaving all my ends in, so that's just a little straggler right there. So we're just going to pretend we didn't see that. So, and you know, if you make a mistake on your blanket, and you, like I did, I didn't make a mistake, but when I was coming back, I seen the G row, like this block right here, on my graph, it showed it right here that it wasn't red. And if you're doing a regular C2C, I'm sorry, not C2C, if you're doing a regular single stitch, single crochet, it'll probably turn out okay. But right here, it was trying to give a lettering effect, but when you looked at the G, it was it was like blank, so it didn't look right. So I just went in with my darning needle with some red thread, and I kind of I wrapped around it. So it's not, this block's not perfect. I knew I have some imperfections, but just know if you make a mistake and you see it later on, you can usually go back and you can, you know, take some string, and hopefully it's not red you need to cover up with white, but, you know, simple stuff like this, you know, you can fix it. Or, you know, that's how you know your blankets are made with love. So, I hope you got some information today. I hope I wasn't confusing anybody. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment, and I will try to get to everyone as I can. Like I said, I hope this was somewhat helpful for somebody who's out there trying to do their own graph gan, going the C2C method. So, Thank you very much for tuning into my channel, and I appreciate the likes and the follow and the subscribers. Everybody have a great day.